What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Trust Your Board podcast. My name's Stephen Wright, joined as always by Mr. William Monroe. Will, how you doing, man?
Steve, doing good over here. How are you doing?
Pretty good, can't complain. Got a special guest on the line with us here today. If you are a longtime listener to the podcast, you'll remember he was on the show quite a bit last year. He has gone through a bit of an evolution, formerly the FF student doc, but like a beautiful little Squirtle, he has evolved into a war turtle of sorts. It's Mr. Edwin, now going by the FB injury doc. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good, man. I'm glad that you compared me to a Pokemon. I think that's the best comparison you could possibly give. Because in reality, Pokemon aren't real, and neither is this game. But hey, I take myself pretty seriously when it comes to a fake game, don't I?
Yeah, for sure. We all do. Awesome, man. So, what have you been up to?
Yeah, man. So started in my own podcast, right? So it's the now it's called the Injury Prone. I'm over at the Injury Prone Fantasy Football Podcast. If you're interested in hearing me spew over a microphone a little longer than I have been last year, I know we did like the injury segment with you guys last year, and that was fun. That was always a good time. And I started my own just recently, so it would have been July, and so we're about 16 episodes in, so not too far in. I feel like there's a lot of good information maybe you can go find, and maybe you guys will find interesting, your listeners will find interesting. So yeah, I mean, go listen to the Squirtle if you want to, the Injury Prone Fantasy Football Podcast, and obviously on Twitter at FB Injury Doc. I'm excited for this mock though. I mean, I'm ready to do that. I was telling you guys I haven't done a mock yet this year, so ready to dominate this 10-teamer.
Yeah, we've been getting a lot of people broken in for the year with their first mocks of the year, so got to get it started here in August, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, we figured, I'm sure you do a lot of interviews and you talk a lot of injury analysis. Let's, break you out of the comfort zone, do a little something different for you, a little change of pace.
Yeah, I'm all about it.
Before we do that, we do got a couple questions for you. Will, you want to shoot them over?
Yeah, so a couple questions here for you, Edwin. First one, who is one player that everyone is a little worried about from an injury perspective that you maybe just, from your unique perspective that you have, aren't as worried about?
It depends on ADP. When I think about players who are maybe going too soon or too late, that's what I think about first. And it's never like I inherently don't like a player necessarily. It always depends on what their ADP is. So if I had to think of one player who I feel like people should sort of calm down about, is Carson Wentz. And I've talked about him pretty much all summer, pretty much all spring. And Carson Wentz has had just this string of injuries that have just been absolutely brutal, but they're not anything too crazy. They're not recurring injuries. They're not injuries that cause you to think that maybe he'll get injured again. He had the fluke concussion, which was the last one. Then he had the ACL 2 years ago now. 2 or 3 years ago. He had the back fractures in 2018. I mean, the dude just had a bunch of injuries that piled up, and they're just not predictive of future injury, especially in the short term. So I think Carson Wentz is a guy that people should stop calling injury prone. He's definitely not a guy that I'm concerned about in 2020.
Definitely music's my ears, Edwin, as an Eagles fan. So good to hear it from you, and hopefully a lot of people will put their pitchforks away. Philadelphia fan base can be a tad bit over the top at times. So yeah, it's tough. I'm sure he's got a good personality to deal with that. But even from the fantasy perspective too, people are worried about injuries. Kind of on the flip side here, who's someone that you are more worried about that most people really aren't looking at from an injury perspective?
Yeah, so it depends again on ADP, but at some point you have to start looking at Evan Ingram, who the coaching staff came out and basically said, yeah, we're not entirely sure if he's ready or if he'll be ready by week 1. That's when you start perking your ears up. You wonder if he is going to come back from that list, Frank, and be ready. And even when he does come back, it's one of those things that it's going to be an up and down season for him. The data shows that there's about a 20% decrease in NFL players' offensive production when they come back from Lisfranc injury. So I worry a little bit about that. And then if he's not going to be ready for week 1, then I think it sort of gets to the point where Evan Ingram is going to be one of the most volatile players off the board. And I think he's still going in like the top 10, maybe even the top like 7 or 8 rounds, which is for me too early for a player with that type of volatility.
Yeah, interesting situation. If he can't make it week 1 or 2 and Dobbins steps in and being the young, fresh guy starts off really hot, it's going to be hard to bench him. So, yeah, it's going to be an interesting situation for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. It'll be interesting to see what Caden Smith does.
Yeah, for sure. So,
Steve, is this you? Are you up?
Yeah, I am up. So we're going to go ahead and get this draft started. We got a 10-team half-point PPR. I am in the 5 spot. Edwin is in the 8. Will is in the 10. We got the ball rolling here. It looks like McCaffrey went off the board at the 101, Saquon 102, and then Zeke, and then Devontae Adams jumps up. Pretty interesting. So I'm kind of in that personal battle that I've been having that I know listeners have been listening to me rant about, and that's I don't know if I like Kamara more than I like Clyde Edwards-Helaire. But I'm actually going to do something a little bit different here. I don't know how many drafts I've actually started with a wide receiver on, so I'm going to go ahead and do it now. A 10-team league, a little bit easier to pull it off, but we're going to go ahead and lock in Michael Thomas. It's not too often he isn't the first one on the board, so a little bit of a different scenario, but we'll start off with a wide receiver and see what gets back to me here. So go ahead, lock in that pick. Alvin Kamara goes off the board, and then Derrick Henry. You're on the clock, Edwin.
Oh, that was quick. Jeez, okay. So here I am looking at the running backs, right? You're looking at Dalvin Cook, Joe Mixon, and then CEH. And then the next tier, as they would call it, is Chubb, Sanders, Kenyon Drake, right? And then the wide receivers are Jones and Hill. So really, since, we are drafting for upside, we really want to look at a player who has upside, but also has sustainable upside. I think that it's too early for CEH. When it comes to a 10-teamer, I think we can afford not to take CEH at this point. I think I'm going to go Hill here. So I'm going to go and take him, locking it in. So we had Derrick Henry before. Now I'm taking Tyreek Hill. And then we had Dalvin Cook, who came after. Now it's Will.
All right. So still just kind of a quick recap. 3 receivers off the board. Looks like 6 running backs. No tight ends, no quarterbacks as usual. So we got the top available there at running back. Just a couple off there. So Mixon, Chubb, Sanders, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Kenyon Drake. Probably looking for me here, Mixon or Chubb if I'm going running back. Still got a lot of top tier wide receivers available, and here at the turn I like to try to get one of each, so I don't have to reach if there is a run on any other or either of the positions before it gets back to me here. So at the wide receiver position, I'm gonna lock in Julio Jones. I just I have him in a dynasty league. I'm gonna ride him until the wheels fall off. I think he's gonna be one of those guys that is just gonna be consistently the guy. Larry Fitzgerald, continue to be usable even in his twilight years like Larry, and I think Julio still got at least 2, maybe even 3 really good wide receiver 1 years left. So we'll lock in Julio as that first wide receiver, and then out of the running backs, being that it's a half-point PPR, not full anything half or standard, I am still all in on Chubb, especially with the line getting a lot better, and hoping that Baker looks even somewhere between year 1 and year 2, because year 1 he was awesome, year 2 was really bad. So even if he's somewhere in the middle there, with the improved offensive line, better receiving weapons, you'd imagine there's a lot more running lanes available. So we're going to go with Nick Chubb as the other player here. So Chubb and Julio on the turn. After him, first quarterback off the board as Pat Mahomes goes to Team 9, and you're up, Evan.
All right, so Mahomes went at the beginning of the second, like you said. Interesting.
Early. Yeah.
Very early for me. So since I went Hill and it's a 10-teamer here, I'm going to go ahead and take, I think I'm going to do it. I'm going to take the plunge. I'm going to take CEH.
There it is.
CEH at the 2.03. And then we had Joe Mixon go right after with DeAndre Hopkins. It's your turn, Steve.
So quick question, Edwin. Do you have any concerns about having both Kansas City players?
Nope, no concern. You want to be attached to as many high-octane offensive players that you want. If Hill doesn't catch a 40-yard bomb down the field and CH will catch a little screen pass and run it in, So I'm excited. I mean, it's something to think about, something to consider. Maybe I would have gone Mixon, but if I would have thought about it, but I honestly didn't even really think about it. That I was just like, oh, another Chief, let's do it.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely the team to do it with. Is there any concern you think just COVID related, like diversify your assets more than a usual year because of that? Like the team gets it?
Not so much because of that. I mean, it's one of those things that Joe Dolan over at Fantasy Points says all the time that you can't. I forget the exact quote that he says, but we don't know what we don't know, and so like we can plan for COVID, but it doesn't mean that we're planning in the right way, if that makes sense. So it's like how will the running back room affect the wide receiver room versus any other team? We don't know. We simply don't know, and so you almost do nothing. You almost are just aware of the situation and continue to draft the same way as you would.
Cool. So on the clock, we got, looking at the running back position, Miles Sanders, Kenyon Drake, Josh Jacobs, Aaron Jones, Austin Eckler. At the wide receiver position, looking at Godwin, Galladay, Allen Robinson, Mike Evans. I was considering going tight end here and grabbing Kelsey or Kittle to start and maybe turning this into a 0 RB. But I think I'd rather do that in a full PPR, not so much in a half point. So I will go ahead and pivot away from that. I will play it somewhat safe and lock in a first running back. And still a lot of good options. A lot of confidence in Miles Sanders, a lot of confidence in Drake and Josh Jacobs as well. So I'm comfortable with all three of them. I think Drake's my guy out of them. It's between Drake and Jacobs for me. I like both of them, but I think Drake's got a higher upside to him, as I think the offense as a whole has a higher upside. So I'm going to take that upside shot, a little bit of a gamble. The more conservative move would probably be Jacobs, but that's not how I play all that often. So we're going to go ahead and lock in Mr. Drake. Miles Sanders and Josh Jacobs go off the board right after me. Chris Godwin, and there's our first tight end, Travis Kelce, at the end of the second. Austin Eckler starts the third. Kenny Galladay, George Kittle, and Aaron Jones. I am back on the clock. So now running backs, we are looking at Gurley, Carson, Fournette, James Conner. At the wide receiver position, Allen Robinson, Mike Evans, Juju, Amari Cooper. So I love some of the wide receiver options here, but given the depth of the position, I can easily just wait, especially in a 10-teamer, and somebody will get back to me, whether that's Beckham or Moore or Robert Woods. Somebody that I'm going to be happy with is going to get back to me unless there's a killer wide receiver run. So I'm going to go ahead, add another running back, and for me, Gurley, Carson, and Fournette are all pretty close. I do like all of them. I've been drafting Carson a fair bit lately, both in my mocks and in our Triple S Showdown draft that we're doing right now. So I'm going to pass him over. I think I've done Fournette somewhat recently as well. Do something a little bit different. Go back to the well. I was drafting him earlier in the year. I've kind of moved away from it. I'm going to take my shot on Gurley. I know some are worried about him. I'm not one of them. I'm more on the side of it's a 1-year deal. They're going to run him in the ground. He'll have plenty of touchdown opportunity. It's just a matter of whether or not the pass catching will come back. I don't think it has to come back 100% to what it was prior. But if he gets a fair amount, he'll still be pretty valuable. So I'm going to go ahead and lock in Mr. Gurley there to grab my second running back. Lamar Jackson goes off the board, our second QB. And then Juju, you're on the clock, Edwin.
Interesting. All right. So I think this decision has pretty much been made for me at this point, right? You got the two tight ends off the board. I mean, you got Andrews still sitting there. You got Juju, who just went before me. And then you're looking at basically wide receivers here, right? I mean, in reality, you're not taking a quarterback yet at all, especially in a 10-teamer. I love Allen Robinson. I think he's a great talent. Mike Evans is obviously a great talent. Amari Cooper, great talent. You have Odell Beckham Jr., who is going in the third round. And as long as his ADP stays in the third round, I am smash drafting him. Last year, he was going like between picks, I think 9 and like 13 or so. Oh my gosh, that's so he's being totally underdrafted. People forget how talented he is. The hernia surgery is extremely successful in players who have it. The dude is literally a transcendent talent. That offense should get better. In another year of Baker, hopefully also is taking a step forward. So I'm gonna smash Odell here. I was planning on. I'm glad he got there. Next went Evans, and Will's on the board.
hoping Evans was going to slide there to me, or even Odell. In league like this with 10 teams, I think you're looking for the upside because everyone's going to have pretty solid teams. With 2 less teams in the league. Looking probably receiver, might even go 2 receivers here. Chris Carson still on the board is definitely an option. I definitely think he's a little bit ahead of some of the other guys. Fournette, the closer we get to the season, and at this point, I don't think there's any way they move on from him. I know there was a big worry earlier in the season, but doesn't have a ton of competition. So Fournette's definitely an interesting option as well. Probably not considering any other running backs. But having Julio, pretty solid floor, and even Chubb, I think it's a pretty solid floor, allows me to maybe take a couple shots on some guys here. So I think with the first pick, I'm going to go with Amari Cooper for an upside wide receiver, pair with Julio, and be able to survive some of his dud games, but thrive in some of the really big upside games. So we'll go Amari Cooper first. After that, looking at potentially DJ Moore. I really like his upside as well. I'm not, overall thrilled about the offense, but I just think, Teddy is a check down guy. Intermediate routes even too, and DJ Moore, CMC are going to thrive on that. More worried about Curtis Samuel and Robbie Anderson. So looking at potentially going with 3 receivers there and seeing what happens if I punt the running back position a little bit here. Then we're going to try that out and see what happens in this one, especially with a 10-team league. There should be more available. I want to go with more upside guys. So we'll go with the 3rd receiver here in DJ Moore. After him goes A.J. Brown.
Man, I really don't know. I don't understand the A.J. Brown thing. I mean, A.J. Brown's going, here we are sitting in the 4th round. I'm at the 4.03. Yeah. A.J. Brown went before Allen Robinson, Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp, Tyler Lockett, Keenan Allen, Terry McLaurin. I mean, even Parker, even Jarvis Landry. I mean, A.J. Brown that ADP is absolutely out of control, in my opinion. So here I am staring at, just took Tyreek first, then CEH, then OBJ. And I really, really like the upside that I've established for myself here. And so I'm glad that Robinson dropped to me. So I'm going to go and go Allen Robinson. I like his talent. He's so good. He's proven to be productive, even with the worst quarterback, not the worst, maybe the top bottom 5 quarterback situation in the league. And he's still putting up numbers. Should be improved hopefully this year. If not, then Big Nick Energy is going to be throwing him the ball deep down the field. I'm excited for that. So right after A-Rob goes Mark Andrews, then Cooper Kupp. And here we are. Steve's your turn again.
Yeah, Allen Robinson falling was a real gift, man. You're lucky there.
I love it.
Taking a look at the board, we got Adam Thielen, Robert Woods, Calvin Ridley, Tyler Lockett, DJ Chark there at the wide receiver position. At the running back position, we still got Chris Carson sitting there, Leonard Fournette, James Conner. So some solid kind of volume guys sitting there, which is quite tempting for me. But I'm looking at the teams after me. They're quite running back heavy. I got a feeling they're going to go wide receivers here with these next 2 turns. So I'm going to go ahead and strike at a wide receiver. Just a matter of who do I want. I feel like Michael Thomas has the upside, but he also has the safety. So given he is a safer kind of player, I could pair him with an upside guy like a Ridley, like a DJ Chark, which is abnormal because this is normally where I like going with like a Robert Woods or a Lockett. I like getting that safety, but I really don't want the dual safety roles. I want a little bit of boom added with my safe guy. But Adam Thielen's there as well. Adam Thielen, both safe and could have a high upside in that offense this year with Diggs out of the way. So it is a very interesting position. I don't draft him too often, but I think I'm going to go ahead and take the upside shot on Ridley. I've mentioned before, I know a lot of people see him as the Chris Godwin outbreak of the year. I don't see that in the cards for him. What Chris Godwin did is not something that replicates year after year. You can go looking for that, and it's hard to find. But he could have another solid year. We've seen high touchdown totals from him before, so I think he's got a decent amount of upside to him and a decent floor. He's not as safe as a Woods or a Lockett or a Thielen, but I think his upside is going to be a little bit higher. So we're going to lock him in. It gives us a lot of flexibility moving forward with 2 running backs and 2 wide receivers. So I'm not forced to do anything with the 5th pick. We'll see what happens. Adam Thielen and Robert Woods go off the board. James Conner and Leonard Fournette rounds out the 4th to start the 5th. T.Y. Hilton and Chris Carson. Wow, all the way to 502. Tyler Lockett and DJ Chark. So as I predicted, a lot of wide receivers going off the board. Let's double check at the running back position. Melvin Gordon, Lev Bell, David Johnson, and Jonathan Taylor. So we're still kind of in that volume tier. We got some upside, potential high upside with David Johnson. But we got, again, potential high upside with Jonathan Taylor. Evan Ingram's there. I won't pick him since Edwin's here. I want to avoid that controversy. But it's an interesting spot. I'm not in love with these running backs, but I feel like I should be grabbing another one. You can always find value at the wide receiver position later. And I think I am just going to take the upside shot on David Johnson. It's kind of crazy 5 rounds in having Todd Gurley and David Johnson on the same roster. Considering just 2 years ago, they were like,
okay, I was going to say, think about saying that if you would have said that 3 drafts ago.
Yeah, right.
Or think about saying how Kenyon Drake is your number 1.
Nobody knew who he was even.
Yeah, right. I mean, and if you look at everyone on the board, I mean, you have Gurley, Melvin Gordon. You could say the same thing about Lev Bell, David Johnson.
There's
it's
mid-tier with a bunch of guys who were elite 2 to 3 years ago, and we just don't know which of them are going to fall off, which of them still have it.
Yeah, 100%. And it's tough. I mean, David Johnson could probably get back to me, but I'm not going to take that risk. I do want the upside. I want to be careful, and I want to make sure I get some extra running backs later, because if he's cooked, then that's going to put me in a tough position. Especially
I think he is.
You do?
I do.
Oh.
I do.
Oh, no.
You're going to wait?
Hey, man, I mean, shoot your shot. That's your draft, of course. I just thought I'd throw that in there.
You're the injury expert.
You said you didn't want any controversy, and he just gives it to you there.
Yeah, that
isn't a controversy, just information. I mean, hey, what do I have to gain or lose from just letting you know I think he's toast? I mean, it's up to you.
Maybe he really wants him though, Steve, and he's hoping that you won't take him.
Could we play the game? Yeah, maybe.
I tell you, there are a lot of reasons why I said what I said. I promise you that's not one of them.
Oh boy, I don't like this. I'm gonna pivot. I'm gonna draft Terry McLaurin. We're gonna go in the complete opposite direction. That's a full-on tilt, and I'm going with the safety of Terry McLaurin, who I love this year. We'll see what running backs get back to me. But we have Melvin Gordon go off the board and Cortland Sutton. Edwin, if you draft David Johnson, I am going to be one unhappy person.
No, I'm not going to go David Johnson. I'm scrolling through here, right? So you had Cortland Sutton, Melvin Gordon, Terry McLaurin, who went after you took. Oh no, you did take McLaurin. After that was Melvin Gordon and Cortland Sutton. Now I'm sitting where I have my 3 receivers: Hill, OBJ, Allen Robinson. My 1 running back, CEH. I'm looking at the running backs: Lev Bell, nothing special. David Johnson, toast. Jonathan Taylor could be good. I just don't trust the offense in general because you have old man Phillip Rivers in the backfield. I'm looking at some of the options I have here, and I'm really, really, really not loving the running backs. I'm coming over to maybe this will be when I take a tight end, because you got Ertz, who's still sitting there. Ingram still sitting there. Hunter Henry still sitting there. But we are in the 5th round. I think I'm still going to keep loading up. Don't love Keenan Allen because of the quarterback situation, even though I think he's super, super talented. Scrolling down, Michael Gallup, I think, is a good value. I'm going to go with the guy you guys might not expect, but I'm going to go ahead and take Marquise Brown here. I love Marquise Brown. He got the hardware out of the foot. I think Lamar Jackson takes another step forward. I think this is the year of the Marquise Brown. He gained, positive weight. Hasn't lost the speed, allegedly. I just really like the Marquise Brown. Marquise Brown.
I'm pretty high on him as well this year.
Yeah. Oh, after that it was Mark Ingram, and now it's Will. It's you again.
Awesome. So here at the turn, you always gotta, look to see what you think's gonna happen. And it's interesting that while Mahomes went kind of early, Lamar slipped a bit. I think there's, those 2 are kind of that top tier, but there's, there are 4 guys I have in kind of my second tier of quarterbacks, and I'm surprised that they're all still there. this is where I'd consider them, but being that they're all still there and Zach Ertz is still available, I think that's more of a positional advantage to potentially get. And just the receivers that are left and only having one running back, I think that'd be more of a luxury pick. But I think in a 10-team league, this is where I'd start considering, quarterbacks if their values here, at pick 50 pretty much. But we're going to look away from that. That first, with that, top tier tight end gone, I have kind of Ertz and Andrews as like that second tier tight end. So I'm going to lock in Ertz first here. I just think, I know Steve and I traded him away in a Dynasty League. Dynasty makes sense to maybe get rid of the value there, but I think Ertz still has, at least another 1 to 2 really good years left. And, we'll see what happens if, something comes up with him and Goddard and the Eagles have to move on from one of them. But, I'm really happy with the receiving core I have here. So even though I may be a little weaker at running back, pairing Ertz with that receiving core gives me a nice positional advantage there. So we'll lock in Ertz first. As you mentioned, this is just kind of that tier of running backs I'm not thrilled about. And it's not going to get any better as it goes further along. So, the only guy I'm really considering here is, Lev Bell. I don't feel great about it, but I do think there's going to be a ton of volume there. So he's going to be a guy that's going to get you some work. For looking back at the receiver position, there's still a couple guys that interest me. DK Metcalf is someone who I was, low on going into last year, but he really proved me wrong, and I do think he has a chance to really break out this year. I know, I think Tyler Lockett already went, right? I know you were mentioning him earlier. I think that they're a really good pairing together. Like, I think they're going to complement each other well. All we need is just Seattle to decide to throw the ball more, because they have Russell Wilson. They just need to let him loose, man. I still don't understand it. Like, I feel like every game, it's all right, we're going to run the ball, and they run the ball, and either they're down or it's a close game, and they need to go to Russell Wilson for a 2-minute drive, and he'll come through every time. It's just let him pass the ball more. I think they would win so many more games, but Pete Carroll is just committed to the run. All that being said, DK, I think, is the receiver I'd probably look at here. Keenan Allen's really nice option as well, especially with the upside there. But I think, there's later guys like Tyler Boyd, like Travis Landry, if I wanted a safer option that I could get a little later. So I think I'm going to reluctantly take a running back that I just want to get volume out of with Le'Veon Bell. And then, maybe look for some more upside running backs a little later. But we'll go Lev Bell here as my next running back. And after him goes Jonathan Taylor and Edwin back on the clock.
All right. This is where I'm going to make another move that might surprise both you guys again. So sitting with CEH as my only running back, I'm looking at Mark Ingram, who just got taken. I think by the end of the year, we are going to be praising J.K. Dobbins as the Miles Sanders of 2020. I'm going to lock him in as soon as I can find him when I'm done scrolling. I like the talent. I don't like the fact that Mark Ingram's 30 years old and he had a massive calf strain last year. I think that J.K. Dobbins is the most talented running back in that backfield. And yeah, if I could figure out how to search a player and find J.K. Dobbins unless he's off the board, then that's what I'm going to do.
No, he's
pretty far down there.
He's third. If you look at just running backs, he's like the second, in middle of tier 5, they call it.
Yeah, he's ranked
Doesn't
33.
have a face though. It's just that
there he is.
Blank
Boom.
Gray person.
No concerns that you could just wait another round and have him get back to you?
You know what? I probably could have, but I want my guy, so I'm gonna go get my guy.
Get your guy.
Yeah, Steve and I would really like that to happen. We had a dynasty team where we've kind of built it around everything but running backs, and we had Jonathan Taylor and J.K. Dobbins from the rookie draft here, and we basically are banking on them and Geis. So with Geis out, we've really banking on JT and Dobbins hitting here.
Yeah, let's hope it happens. We'll see.
Hopefully Edwin can speak that into existence.
So after I took Dobbins, that's when you saw DK come off the board and then David Johnson come off the board.
Oh, Steve, he almost got back to you.
I would have drafted him if he got back to me. I would have. I would have taken it as a sign. But alas, he is gone. So we have David Montgomery, Devin Singletary, Raheem Mostert, DeAndre Swift, and Cam Akers there at the running back position. I'll read off the wide receivers, but we are focusing on running back with this pick. Keenan Allen, who's actually quite a value at this point. Devontae Parker, Stefan Diggs, Landry, AJ Green, that kind of a tier here. So at the running back position, I do want to get a volume-based guy. And for me, that's going to be David Montgomery. I think he does take a step forward from last year. I think that entire offense can take a step forward. Devin Singletary, I like, but with Moss there, probably taking the touchdown upside away. Raheem Mostert, we know the story there. He'll be a monster one game, and then it'll be Coleman the next. DeAndre Swift and Akers, both potential timeshare guys with rookies. So I see Montgomery as the safer play. It is a pure volume play. I'm not sure what the touchdown upside would be. Hopefully the offense does take a step forward and he gets that opportunity, but there's definitely a world where it doesn't. So we'll see, but he's going to get the touches, and I'm happy with that as my third running back. So we'll go ahead, lock him in there. There goes Keenan Allen, Devin Singletary, Devontae Parker, and our third quarterback off the board, Dak Prescott. That rounds out the sixth. To start the seventh, Stefan Diggs, Darren Waller, Deebo Samuel, and another quarterback, Russell Wilson. So I am back on the clock. Only running back that off the board, Devin Singletary. So mostly the same guys at the wide receiver position. We're looking at Landry, AJ Green, Tyler Boyd, Michael Gallup. We'll read off the tight ends here. We got Evan Ingram, Hunter Henry, Tyler Higbee, Hayden Hurst, and then at quarterback, we have Kyler Murray, Deshaun Watson, Josh Allen, Matt Ryan, Carson Wentz. Since Will was considering going quarterback earlier and didn't, I feel the need to punish him and just take Kyler and make sure Kyler doesn't get back to him. I know it doesn't matter because we're both late round guys and Will has no issue just waiting for somebody. But it's in the back of my mind that I could pull that off. For running backs, I'm fine with all of them. Kareem Hunt's on the board too. They're all solid options for a 4 at the wide receiver position. AJ Green is calling out to me. But I do got a lot of upside shots with Ridley and McLaurin. I could probably use the safety of a Tyler Boyd. So I guess I will be a reasonable person. I will not draft a quarterback. I'll wait, and I will grab Boyd. I think, like I said, we got Michael Thomas that represents upside and safety, but then we got a pure upside play in Ridley, a pure upside play in McLaurin, and while they're not floorless like a Will Fuller, their floors are a little bit lower because there's just the nature of their offenses. Calvin Ridley's the 2 in his offense. Terry McLaurin, while he's the 1, is going to have quarterback questions over offensive questions. So I'm going to lock in Boyd as a safe kind of floor player. I think he fits this team well. So we'll go ahead, put that pick in. AJ Green and Raheem Mostert go off the board right before Edwin.
Okay. Sorry, I lost for a second. All right, so we're looking at Raheem Mostert, like you just said. I'm sitting with J.K. Dobbins, Marquise Brown, Allen Robinson, OBJ, CEH. I'm looking, and we are in the 7th round. I'm still going to keep loading up on wide receiver. I think that I'm really shooting for upside in 2020. I think the highest upside dude is this guy named Michael Gallup in Dallas. I don't love the offense necessarily. I don't love the coaching staff, but I do think that Michael Gallup can really emerge as being that number 2 guy. I don't think that Judy will quite get there. Rookie wide receivers can be up and down, and so that I'm gonna go with Gallup. And right after Gallup went Julian Edelman off the board in the 8th, and then it's Will's turn.
All right, so taking a look just overall what we got. Not going to be looking tight end, but I think we just have the top 4, and then Waller off the board. Quarterback, Mahomes, Jackson, Dak, and Russell Wilson off the board. So you got everyone else other than that. Top running backs, Swift, Akers, Kareem Hunt, Ronald Jones, James White, Howard, Sony, Breida. And then at the wide receiver position, looking at Jarvis, Marvin Jones, Will Fuller, Brandon Cooks, Christian Kirk, James Crowder, Deontay Johnson. So here, first pick, I'm going to be looking at running back going for an upside guy. So I'm happy to see Swift and Akers both still available there. Out of the 2, I just player-wise like Swift better. Both aren't in the best situations that we see with the Dobbins, with the CEH, with the Jonathan Taylor. Much better offensive line, just better teams overall. But I like the talent of Swift better, and I do think that while Carry On, is going to get some work there. I think Swift is just going to be able to beat him out. And while I don't know that their offensive line is terribly better than LA's, I do think it is somewhat better. And I do like Stafford a little bit better than Goff. So just overall, slight tiebreakers. We'll go with Swift here to kind of pair with the safety of Lev Bell as the RB2. The next pick, we're going to be looking potentially at quarterback, as Steve called out there. Kyler's still there. Watson's still there. But there's still quite a few other quarterbacks available that I don't think I need to lock one in here. It is interesting seeing Kyler still there in the 8th, but being a 10-team league, you're not going to have nearly as many drafted. We only have, 4 drafted so far, so that means there's only 5 other teams outside of myself that don't have one. So we're going to look back at the running back and wide receiver position again here. Got Jarvis still there as a nice safe pick. But I don't think I have a ton of risk. I think DJ Moore has upside, but I do think he still has floor as well. You got Marvin Jones, Will Fuller, Brandon Cooks. Nobody that I really love more than the rest. So I'm actually going to go back to the running back position and double down on the 2 rookies there with Akers and hope that I get one of the 2 to hit, so that I'll be able to at least flex them, or if something happens where Le'Veon Bell ends up not being what we expect him to be, with the volume I'm expecting, have some upside shots there. So we're going to go double down on the 2 rookie running backs in Swift and Akers. And after that, Jarvis Landry goes off the board to you, Edwin.
Man, interesting. Okay. So it went Cam, and then it went Jarvis. And let's see. What we have remaining is, like you were saying, you got Marvin Jones, Will Fuller, Brandon Cooks. Christian Kirk I'm sort of eyeballing him. I'm a pretty big fan. So did you say DJ Moore had gone off the board or had not?
Yeah, I took him in the 4th round.
You did take him in the 4th. That's right. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's see. I don't have the safest running back room in the league at this point. So I'm looking at a few guys and who might be back by the time that the turn hits. And you know what? I think I'm going to stick to my guns here. I've been saying I want to play for upside. I'm trying to win this since it's a 10-team league. So sticking to that, I will say that I'm going to take. Gosh, it's really tough for me to say here. Because you also have sitting at tight end, you still have Ingram sitting there. We're in the 8th round, and I just said I don't want to take Ingram early in the 8th. I won't contradict myself.
He said it's ADP, right? If he, maybe if he gets back to it again.
You know what? I get it, but I think I'm going to go with a guy who, if we're high on if we're high on Kyler Murray, then we have to be high on Christian Kirk, right? Because it's not like Kyler Murray's going to throw all his balls to DeAndre Hopkins. So I'm going to go. I'm going to go Christian Kirk here.
Yeah, how much more does Larry have left? Be good, but you need another explosive guy besides Hopkins.
Ironically, you got Kyler that came off the board after that, and then Will Fuller.
Yeah, that's a shame. I wouldn't have been able to pass up on Kyler there. That would have been just too good to be true, but what can you do? So, got a pretty balanced team here. At wide receiver, we got Michael Thomas, Calvin Ridley, Terry McLaurin, Tyler Boyd. At running back, Kenyon Drake, Todd Gurley, David Montgomery. We'll take a look at the running back position real quick. Got Kareem Hunt there. Love Kareem Hunt this year. Ronald Jones, pretty interesting. James White, Jordan Howard, Sony Michel, Matt Breida. So that's kind of the tier we're in. Wide receivers, looking at Marvin Jones. Big fan of Marvin Jones. Brandon Cooks, interesting shot. Deontay Johnson, Jameson Crowder, John Brown. So a lot of good options here. I was going to go ahead and draft Evan Ingram and get an upside tight end, but I don't think I could pass up Kareem Hunt here. Lock in a 4th tight end. It gives me a lot of flexibility moving forward. So I will go ahead and lock him.
I like that pick, Steve. He's been the reason that and even in this draft, been wanting to take Nick Chubb less and less. Because every time I take Nick Chubb, I get to round, 5 or 6 usually, here I guess 7 or 8 because it's 10-team. And Kareem Hunt sitting there, super appealing. But already having Chubb, I'm not going to double down on him. So makes me not want to take Chubb in the earlier rounds.
Yeah, I had said something similar a few episodes ago about Galladay and Marvin Jones. So that happens. So before I read off the picks, guys, we will make this our last round coming up on time. So we'll finish out this round, and then we can go and read off our teams, give us some thoughts, and wrap everything up, okay? So, after my pick, we had Marvin Jones, Deshaun Watson, Matt Ryan, and Evan Ingram round out the 8th, Brandon Cooks, Ronald Jones, Deontay Johnson, and Darius Geis. ADP has fallen, but hasn't dropped off completely. There at the 9:04. So I am back on the clock. It's a shame Evan Ingram went, but what can you do? I will turn my attention to the quarterback position, and I will go ahead. I don't think I really drafted him too often this year, although I do like him, and historically I've drafted him a lot. But I will draft who I will now dub Edwin's boy, Carson Wentz.
My boy.
Plenty of upside. I mean, he was a QB1 last year towards the back half of the season with no wide receivers. So having DJ's back, getting Rieger in there, maybe J-Jaw takes a step forward, he'll be solid. So I'm comfortable with him at the quarterback position. We'll go ahead and lock him in there with my last pick. After that, we had John Brown and Darius Slayton go off the board.
That's an interesting combination there. Let's see here. What do we got at tight end? We're still sitting with Hunter Henry and Tyler Higbee. Wide receiver, you're looking at Jameson Crowder, Mike Williams, Sterling Shepard. Running back, you are looking at James White, Jordan Howard. Oh, hate that. So I guess since everybody's starting to take quarterbacks, I'll sit here and I'll hold my nose. I won't watch the games. And I'm going to take Josh Allen as my quarterback.
That's a pretty strong opinion. Not a fan?
Sure. Not a fan at all. Not a fan of him as an NFL quarterback. I think he plays an ugly game. It's just lacks discipline. It lacks any type of semblance of being an actual good NFL quarterback. I mean, he's fine, I guess. I just think that he's just a madman, but I mean, he's good for fantasy. I can't deny that.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, someone asked me between Allen and Kirk Cousins just overall, and I said, if I'm the receivers owner of the receivers, I'd rather have probably Kirk Cousins receivers. But if I'm owning the quarterback, I'd rather have Josh Allen. Just as you mentioned, he's good for fantasy. I don't know that he's great for real life football or even for his wide receivers. We'll see what Diggs does this year. But yeah, I have him as a backup in the Dynasty League and hoping not to play him at all this year, but happy to just have the rushing upside potentially there. So looking at my last pick after you took Allen, CeeDee Lamb went off the board, being it's the last pick, I would probably be looking at wide receiver or quarterback pretty much the rest of the draft unless a running back fell. And at this point, not really thrilled at any of the receivers over any of the other ones specifically. So to make it clean, I'll take a quarterback here as well. And I'll take Steve's boy, Mr. Matt Stafford. I know we're both fans of him. And I know he's, I think, a little hurt last year, but he's just always consistently good. Drew Brees is an interesting one as well, but there's always that chance that maybe this is the year that he falls off. I don't know that that'll happen or not, but Stafford fan, so we'll go with Matty Stafford.
Okay, so that's going to round out the mock. What we're going to do now, Edwin, just run down our teams real quick. Give us a quick thought as to how you think things turned out. So starting with me at the 5 spot, at the quarterback position, we got Carson Wentz. At the running back position, we got Kenyon Drake, Todd Gurley, David Montgomery, and Kareem Hunt. At wide receiver, Michael Thomas, Calvin Ridley, Terry McLaurin, Tyler Boyd, and we did not draft a tight end yet. Overall, I like it. Comfortable with the quarterback. Wide receivers are pretty good. Nice mix of safety and upside. The running backs are a little bit worrisome. You have Todd Gurley that could be falling off. You have David Montgomery who could have another year like last year where he got a lot of volume and wasn't super relevant. So there are some concerns there, but overall I do like it. It's a pretty well balanced team, so I don't think I have any strong needs going through outside of needing to pick up another tight end. So I can kind of see where the value falls for the rest of the draft and go from there. Edwin, what do you think of your team?
Yeah, so I'm looking at for the draft position I was in. Actually, was pretty happy with what I ended up with. I got Tyreek Hill, CEH, OBJ, Allen Robinson, Marquise Brown, J.K. Dobbins, Michael Gallup, Christian Kirk, and Josh Allen. And I don't mind it. I don't hate it. I think that I've had plenty of upside. I think that Hill, OBJ, and Allen Robinson are my safety. I think that those guys will sort of anchor my team, and then the rest are a little more volatile. I'm really loading up with my I'm really trusting the rookie running back this year, obviously. But in a 10-team league, I would trust that there's more to go off of on the waiver wire. So I'm warm. I'm warm on this team. It's okay.
Cool. Will, what do you think of yours?
Yeah. Overall, I like it. I don't love it. Maybe some, things looking back that would have done slightly differently. But receiver position, even though I still only have 3, I'm really happy with Julio, Amari, and DJ Moore. I think that's a really nice grouping there. You're always going to be able to lock one into your flex. And Zach Ertz, really makes the slight, maybe not sexiest running backs, bring some upside there. Nick Chubb, Lev Bell, and the 2 rookies, a little more volatile. Maybe instead of Lev Bell, go with one of the receivers that maybe had a little more value there and, get running backs later. And then even, as much as I do like Stafford, grabbing Kyler instead of, Akers and then getting, maybe a James White or Matt Breida here, probably would have been on par, running back wise, maybe not the same upside, but much more upside at the quarterback position. But overall, pretty good team. 10-team leagues. I feel like everyone's usually pretty happy with their team, so it's kind of hard to evaluate.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, that's going to wrap up the mock. Edwin, really appreciate you coming on and joining us, man.
Yeah, guys, I appreciate you rescheduling for me. Sorry that I messed that up for you.
It's not a problem at all. We want to remind the listeners where we can find you. What's your Twitter? What's the name of the pod? Where can we find it?
Yeah, so new podcast is out, the Injury Prone Fantasy Football Podcast. You can find me on Twitter at FBInjuryDoc, and all of my written content is over at fantasypoints.com. So check it out. Thanks again for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
Of course, man.
Yeah.
Anytime.
Coming on.
Thanks for everyone listening. You can find us on Twitter at TrustYourBoard. You can also find us on YouTube if you want to watch the board as it plays out. Just search Trust Your Board. Give us a like if you can. Give us a 5-star rating. We really appreciate it. Until next time, trust your board.